Afternoon. Welcome to configuration number 3 of our room setups in the October 2024 meeting. I think our stalwart public speakers have found their way here. I see some of our regulars. David, would you like to introduce our public speakers?
Certainly. We have 3 public speakers today. Our first public speaker is Jason Anthony, who will be followed by Kara Girl.
Good afternoon, Kevin. Hey, Neil. Happy Monday to all. Jason Anthony from the Long Island Railroad 88 Task Force. I was proud to be on the Port Authority's meeting last Thursday. Here's some bit of positive news to start the week. At least they didn't announce for the time being no fare and toll increase, but we have to take that with a bit of caution because we don't know if they're going to announce it in next month's board meeting. So we're going to keep an eye on them. But as a reminder, we are supporting the 2025 to 2029 capital plan, because we have been seeing, to be honest with you, Kevin, that fare evasion is becoming a national problem, even though that started here in New York City. Because we have been noticing that SEPTA, Washington Metro, even agencies as far as the West Coast. But it's our responsibility that we maintain our financial situation in order. So, Kevin, you're the boss, and I trust you 100%. So keep it going. I'll see you guys on Wednesday.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kara Girl, who will be followed by Maddie Bucky's Highland.
Good afternoon. I'm Kara Girl, Planning and Advocacy Manager at the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA, PCAC. We've been saying for months now that pausing congestion pricing was a reckless, illegal decision that effectively defunded transit for millions of riders and generations to come. There's only one person to blame for the state of the MTA's finances, and it's Governor Hochul. We already knew that the pause delayed $16.5 billion in capital projects that will only grow in cost. But the state comptroller's report last week confirmed that pausing congestion pricing hurts every aspect of the MTA, including the operating budget. Without congestion pricing, riders may have to face some of our worst-case scenarios: service cuts, major fare hikes, and layoffs of the essential transit workers who get us where we need to go. With millions of riders, tens of thousands of transit employees, hundreds of stations, and dozens of train and bus lines, it's unconscionable that one person can single-handedly plunge this agency into a financial crisis. Nobody in this room is a stranger to the MTA's fiscal instability. Less than 2 years ago, we were cheering when the governor and legislature finally put transit on stable ground for the foreseeable future, or so we thought. But now, we're facing a manufactured crisis that needlessly put transit, and the millions of us who rely on it every day, in peril. Our message hasn't changed. Governor Hochul needs to unpause the pause and start congestion pricing. It's not just about funding the capital plan. It's about cleaner air, better transit, and safer streets. It's also about investing in riders and the future of the region. Thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Maddie Bucky's Highland.
Okie dokie, David. Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maddie W. Bucky's Highland. Today, as Kara Girl just mentioned, with the congested pricing, if we do not implement it soon, they could be irreparable consequences. For example, if we do not, well, I oppose at $15, I would support it at $7 or $8, for example. If this is not implemented, we may have to increase the sales tax, which was first the commuter district sales tax, which stands at 0.375. We may have to increase it to half of 1% or even higher, like 0.625%. So hopefully we don't go that route, but that's also up to the state legislature, as it was recently increased back in 2005 under then of former New York Governor George E. Pataki. And second of all, funding is very crucial for trans at this point, especially whoever's in the White House next and the Congress. We need critical investment. There are some who want to cut funding. I say no. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, please have a great day. Have safe travel home, and God bless you, everyone. Thank you, David.
Thank you. That concludes the public speaking section.
Thank you, David. All right, the administrative nature of our minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the September committee minutes, please? Thank you. Second? Second? Anyone?
Second.
Thank you, Hada. Any additions, deletions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstention. Motion passes. David, from our financial performance report, please take us through the budget portion, please.
Thank you. Compared with the mid-year forecast, year-to-date September 2024 preliminary results were favorable by $236 million, with favorable results for operating expenses, commuter rail farebox revenue, operating subsidies, debt service expense, and investment income more than offsetting shortfalls to subway and bus farebox revenue and B&T toll revenue. Operating revenues on a year-to-date basis were $79 million, or 1% unfavorable. Passenger revenues were $86 million unfavorable, and toll revenue was $6 million unfavorable. Subway farebox revenue was $54 million unfavorable, or 3%, and bus farebox revenue was $69 million, or 13% unfavorable, for a combined $123 million unfavorable year-to-date. As a reminder, the mid-year forecast includes a remaining reserve of $167 million for 2024 to offset the unfavorable subway and bus revenue results, which again were a grand total of $123 million. Farebox revenue for the commuter rails reached 4% favorable, with Long Island Railroad $20 million favorable and Metro North $19 million favorable. Operating subsidies year-to-date were $55 million, or 1% favorable. Excluding investment income, subsidies directed to the operating budget were favorable by $36 million, primarily driven by favorable results for the real estate-related taxes, the urban tax, and the MRT, which were a combined $49 million favorable year-to-date. Capital subsidies were $7 million favorable year-to-date. Operating expenses were favorable by $248 million, or 2% year-to-date, mostly due to timing-related favorable results at Transit, Long Island Railroad, MTA Bus Headquarters, and C&D. In addition to timing of expenses, Transit's variance reflects favorable payroll due to vacancies, which is more than offset by unfavorable overtime, unfavorable paratransit expenses reflecting higher trip volume and support costs, which are mostly offset by higher city reimbursement for paratransit expenses, and favorable electric power expense. The underrun at the Long Island Railroad mainly reflects lower average pay rates due to the mix of employee pay grades, higher project reimbursements, and favorable electric power. Metro North's unfavorable variance is primarily due to increased payroll in connection with lower reimbursable activities, training and associated expenses related to new employees, overtime, and an increase in claims expense. Overtime year-to-date across the MTA was $194 million, or 31% unfavorable, while payroll was $139 million favorable. Debt service expense was $12 million, or 1% favorable year-to-date, and is further detailed in the financial performance report.
Thank you, David. Questions for David? Comments? Hearing now, I'm going to make two comments. First is that, I don't know if anyone saw, our state comptroller recently put out a slightly negative report about the MTA's finances. I think we should have a blanket invite for Tom to come and visit this committee, because I at least see two very positive trends. If you stare at the charts that David has been producing for the last 2 years about the midpoint for McKinsey versus ours, you'll see that the subway and the buses have had a significant upturn in the last month. I think that's an incredible testament to the enforcement work being done by the agencies, by police, by the marketing we're doing, talking about things, and that's a really positive trend. So thank you for our riders for paying. Thank you for our messaging getting out. I think the second thing I'd say is if you look at our subsidies from real estate, the market is getting a little better for us. If you look at the urban tax and the MRT, it's pretty positive trend, or at least an emerging trend that's happening. So that's some good news as well. So I don't know. I asked Tom to come visit us because maybe things are getting better than he thinks. I don't know, do you have a point you want to make?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. Yeah, the controller's report, did lay out, a lot of risks to the budget. It was actually many things we identified. If you remember, Jay went through a presentation around the impacts to the operating budget from, the congestion pricing pause, if that was going to continue and not get resolved. So I do feel like the controller's report gonna, from my perspective, reaffirm the risks that we've talked to the committee and the board about that we're trying to address, whether, again, it's the congestion pricing and how that the capital side impacts the operating, the fare evasion and needing to get paid ridership, which again, I think we're really happy with the direction of the, if you look in the last month, as you mentioned, the uptick in paid ridership at both buses and subways closer to that midpoint. And I know Transit's doing a lot of work on combating, some new ways to combat fare evasion on the buses, which hopefully will continue to yield results. So we're going to have a new November plan that we're going to present next month. That we'll talk about where we go with the paid ridership revenue projections from here, and the continued work that's being done on keeping the operating expenses at the lower level that incorporates the 500 million commitment.
Great.
But
Jerry, please.
Just curious, does the controller's office speak to you before they issue these reports, or they just go ahead and issue them?
So we share a lot of information with the controller's report. So we don't, they don't give us an opportunity to be their editor on their reports. But we do. But we do square with them on the facts and the numbers and so forth. So it's look. I think I think the controllers report brings some good focus, which we've tried to. One, that there's a lot of risk to the budget, and you can't just you've got to address these things, which we've done, and that the capital program has to get funded at a good level that takes care of state of good repair. So, truthfully, I enjoy the criticism coming from the controller, because it's about being fiscally prudent, which I like to do. So
Look, you want a CFO who's a masochist, and I appreciate having you. As you know, there's that old line, like, I can sleep because he doesn't, kind of thing. So I think you allow us to sleep at night, so thank you. But yes, it's true. Having different advocates, having different folks who are all looking, whether are required advocates by statute or voluntary advocates, it's all the necessary pieces we have. Okay. Oh, please, Andrew.
Thanks, Kevin. Do you have any idea, even a neighborhood of an idea, as to when the new turnstiles may be arriving? Because I watched a similar turnstile in Philadelphia because I wanted to see how effective they were, and the booth agent told me they've cut down fare evasion by 85%, and I watched it for an hour, and nobody tried to beat it. So I'm just wondering, do you have any idea when they are due to arrive?
I don't have, we'll have to get back to you on some information, but I do want to highlight that we've got a large investment on the new fare arrays as part of the 25 to 29 capital program. So it's critical to get that program approved so we can move from just just a small amount of better fare array technology to really starting to close it down. So but we need that capital program approved.
Good question. Thank you for that. All right, Olga, let's turn to the finance section.
Good afternoon, everyone. This month I have a quick bond market update, and also
Can you just put it, because we're having trouble hearing you.
Is this better?
Yes,
Okay.
much. Thank you.
So this month I have a quick bond market update, and I also will be reporting results of 2 bond sales. Let me start with the bond market update first. I'm sure many of you have seen headlines about Treasury rate increases, and we're wondering what this means for us and our budget. The rates indeed have increased sharply since we met last month. The increase really started with the Federal Reserve meeting on September 18th, which actually cut rates. So it's a little counterintuitive what's happening with the market if the Federal Reserve cutting rates, which means reducing rates by 15 basis points. The main factor or the factors that are behind this increase in rates that we notice, and you can see in the chart, the rates sort of peaked around May and then gradually started declining, reached a year low around that mid-September and then spiked up. What's driving this is market expectation about future Fed action and future interest rate reductions. The economic data that came out after the Federal Reserve meeting supported a stronger economy than expected, and also inflation numbers like CPI came out a little higher than market expectations. So the 30-year Treasury yield increased 56 basis points from 3.9% on September 17th to 4.5% on October 23rd. And that's, again, you can see it from the chart, it's the highest since July. And the 10-year and the 20-year Treasury rates experienced increases of a similar magnitude. As far as municipal market, we actually lagged behind this rapid rate increase move. But last week, our market also increased, and we saw rates go up 28 to 30 basis points, so as much as 1/3 of a percentage point. What this means for us is higher debt service costs on new debt that we have to issue, and it also means low refunding savings. And we actually experienced this firsthand because last week we were in the market with a refunding transaction. We still locked in healthy level of savings, but we would have done better if not for the market, for the rate increase. Had we waited longer to go into the market, that would have costed us even more because the rates kept going up the following day before stabilizing and tempering down towards the end of the week. We use conservative assumptions in our budget for borrowing costs, so we don't really expect needing to tweak those assumptions in light of this rate movement. So from a budget perspective, I think we should be okay. I guess the other side of it is investment earnings, and as part of your materials, you have actually investment report for the first half of this year, and you see we're doing quite well on our investment returns, but keeping everything kind of equal, we would much rather have low interest rate environment than high interest rate environment, just given where our exposure is.
Great.
David, please.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, you may have already, have the rating agencies gotten to us with any discussion on the pause on congestion pricing?
And I'll let Olga clarify, but they have, the rating agencies, as you know, we got some upgrades. They put us on actually a positive outlook because of our solving our budget deficit. They meet periodically, and some feedback, and Olga, correct me if I'm wrong, is that they've identified, both the congestion pricing and the need to get the capital program approved as important to the financial health of the MTA. So what they did, we were actually concerned that they might take an action and lower their outlook on us because of congestion pricing. But what they've done instead is say, well, let's just take a wait and see, and let's see what happens this spring if the capital program gets funded or not. But my view is that if we get to next June and we don't have a fully funded capital program and we don't have a fix for the congestion pricing, it might be a little bit out of time for the rating agencies to reverse course, which, as you know, we've spent the last few years getting them more positive about MTA, given solving the fiscal cliff. Olga, did I miss?
No, Kevin is absolutely correct. Our ratings are meant to represent kind of rating agencies' views of MTA's financial health over long periods of time, right? So effectively, they were willing to kind of wait and see how the funding for the current capital program related to congestion pricing, as well as funding for the next capital program, will be resolved.
Thank you for that question. Other questions on Olga's presentation on the rates? She clearly has a crystal ball. She knows exactly where it's going.
Well, if we did, then I think.
I was unfairly goading you. You don't have to answer that. That was.
Well, I will say that she was in the market a day earlier than New York City, who suffered more of the negative impact from the market. So she came from, she was running the
Yes,
debt
you
program
don't have
in
to
New York
outrun the
City,
tiger. You
so-
have to outrun the other guy.
Then I think I would not be sitting here. But
thank-
I think this is a pretty standard response to these type of questions, right?
Well, look, as a board, in all seriousness, it's important for us to monitor these things. This is a huge part of our debt cost, and I'm glad you're at the helm keeping track of what's happening. And please keep us abreast. I mean, if you stare at the page 10 and you look at, you clearly have been able to keep our rate relatively stable. It seems like you've given up duration in order to keep the rate down that we're paying, but it seems like that's the right move for us to keep our debt costs fair.
Well, and what's driving the duration is also our refundings. So we initially issue debt for 30 years, and then if there are opportunities to refund at a lower cost and lock in savings, those refunding transactions generally happen around 10 or 20-year mark. So those are shorter transactions. So a little bit of what you see in duration are those refunding transactions.
Great. All right. Anything else from you?
Unless there are any questions on the bond sales, it's 2 refunding transactions at very healthy savings level despite that market disruption we discussed.
Great. Thank you, Olga. All right, Lizette, over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. There's one MTA headquarters item this month for the Finance Committee to approve in the estimated amount of $504,000, and this action is found in the October 2024 Finance Committee book. This item is the exercise of Option 2 of the Disability and Medicare Coordination Services contract awarded to SSDC Services Corp. to continue providing services to facilitate the enrollment of eligible disabled retirees under the age of 65 into Medicare Parts A and B for 1 additional year, making Medicare the retiree's primary coverage, and thereby reducing New York City Transit's medical cost. To date, New York City Transit has realized approximately $4.1 million in savings through the use of the services provided under this contract.
Thank you. Questions? Motion? Thank you. Second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much. David, or Sarah Olga, anything on the fuel hedge you want to cover?
It's a very short 3-page presentation that I'm happy to go through if there is interest.
You know what? We actually haven't talked about this in a very long time. I can't actually remember the last time we've talked about it. So would you mind, before you just remind the committee, since I think we have some new members, what in fact are we hedging? What does it mean? Just give us the what before the how.
And I think our first slide is exactly that, I hope. I guess maybe we can start with the kind of very basic why hedge at all, right? So hedging, any hedging is a tool. In our case, this is a tool that helps us control our fuel cost expenses in the budget. Fuel expenses is a fairly large expense category in the budget, so controlling volatility of that expense is meaningful. The program has been in place since December of 2011, and we designed it to hedge approximately half of the ultra low sulfur diesel expenses over the next 12 months. Currently, average locked-in price for this period is 2.48% per gallon, and the average budgeted price for the same period is 2.6 cents per gallon. I'm sorry, 2.60 cents, $2.60 per gallon, sorry. I think this is a very good chart that illustrates how the program works. So for me, it's helpful to think about the program as basically consisting of 2 12-month periods. The first 12-month period, so from September through August of next year, we're hedged at our targeted 50% of expenses every month. And then the next 12 months period, starting from month 13 through month 24, that's the period where we're still layering on hedges every month. And this layering on approach allows us to cost average, so we don't put too much exposure in any given market. And you can see those yellow bits in the second kind of half of the chart, showing the newly layered hedge that was executed last month. And then this chart, I think, is really helpful to see the impact of what the program allows us to achieve. So there are a lot of lines here, and not all of them came out exactly as intended, because I can see now that the hedged line that's supposed to be dashed came out as another solid line. My apologies for this. Let me walk you through this. So basically, the chart shows unhedged ULSD prices, and that's the solid green line that sort of dips down around, I guess, September of maybe January of 2022, and then goes back up. You have a solid blue line, and that's unhedged fuel prices. So that's a line that goes, the lowest in the beginning, then spikes up, and then kind of tapers off. In between those lines, you have fuel price line that reflects the impact of the hedges. So this period, I think, is really good period to kind of see how the program impacts the price we pay for ULSD, because it covers a period where the market price was actually lower than the hedged price, and that was in the beginning of this period. If you remember, back in 2020, with the impact of the pandemic, fuel prices really declined. And so our hedges were underperforming during that period. But then you can see the reverse happened by, again, I think May of 2022. The market price has really spiked up, reaching $4.78 per gallon. And this is where the hedge really delivered. You can see that hedged maximum price was substantially lower, peaking at $3.54 per gallon. So overall, during this period, the hedges saved us approximately $60 million. We're slightly negative over the first 2 quarters of this year so far, but again, the intent of this program is not time the market and get it, locked in perfectly. Going back to Neil's crystal ball question, the goal of the program is to deliver budget certainty, and that's exactly what this program is achieving.
Good. Thank you. Questions? Okay, hearing none. We have 2 other reports, semi-annual investment performance report and our consolidated financial statements. Are there any questions for those 2 reports from either Olga or Jim? Okay, hearing none, we'll go back to Lizette for information items on procurement.
There's one information item for the New York City Transit Committee as follows. This item is a request that the board ratify the declaration of an immediate operating need and approve the award of 3 modifications to a contract with Corporate Transportations Group Limited, and awards of 3 new contracts to OAS Inc., Way LLC, and Unified Dispatch LLC for the procurement of all technology and related services necessary for continuity of services pursuant to the January 2023 termination for cause of the contract to provide real-time scheduling and computer-aided dispatch systems, as well as hardware and software for the automatic vehicle location monitoring and interactive voice response systems for paratransit access-a-ride operations. There's one information item for Metro North Committee as follows. This item is a request from Metro North on behalf of itself and Long Island Railroad for the board to approve the award of an estimated quantity contract to GE Grid Solutions for the supply and delivery of positive train control data radios. There are no procurement items for Long Island Railroad or bridges and tunnels this month.
Questions on those information items that may not have been covered in the individual committees that were already presented in? Okay, we have our consolidated reports in the committee book. David, real estate.
Mr. Chairman, real estate has no action items this month, but we do have 6 information items. The first 2 are for MTA Long Island Railroad, and they include a permanent agreement with the Kew Gardens Flea and Craft Market for use of parking spaces at the Kew Garden Station in Queens. acquisition of permanent easements from the town of Islip in support of the Long Island Railroad's Babylon interlocking signal system and upgrade project. And the next item is for MTA Bridges and Tunnels, and it is a permit with the September 11 Memorial Museum at the World Trade Center for the use of parking spaces at the Battery Garage. Two informations are for MTA Metro North, and they include a permit with the town of Cortland for the use of commuter parking at the Cortland Station, and for a one-day community event. Just something, wow, something happened here. Okay, got it. There's also a report, the report on events in Grand Central Terminal, and the last item is the MTA-wide report on retail agreements entered into directly by the Real Estate Department.
Okay, well, those are a lot of information. Have any questions for David of any of those items? Any new business for the committee? Hearing none, motion to adjourn. Thank you, Mark. Second. Okay, thank you, Hayden. All right, have a good time. See you on Wednesday.
Accommodations?